Hello, everyone. My name is Zanae Augustini. I'm CEO of CID Insurance Programs, and I want to welcome you to our Secrets to Writing Allied Health E&O. We're lucky today to have Sue Park, who's USLI's National Product Leader for Allied Health, and she is very knowledgeable on the subject, and she's going to be teaching the webinar today. In addition, Alexi Johnson is our professional liability underwriter with CID, and Jacob Cole is our marketing coordinator who makes everything run behind the scenes. So let's talk about some logistics and get started. All of you will be on mute, but you will be able to hear, obviously, but not speak. Questions, but your voice is important, so please pose your questions in the chat room on the bar on the side of your screen, and go ahead and put them in anytime you think of them throughout the webinar, and we will stop and Sue will answer those questions for you. There's a short survey after the webinar, and again, your feedback is very important to us, so please participate in that. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sue Parks to take it from here.
Thank you, Zanae. Next slide, please. Thank you for joining us today as we unearth and dig into the world of allied health. And so I'll start off by defining what is allied healthcare. Allied health may be defined as those health professions that are distinct from medicine and nursing. Allied health professions include many of the well-known non-nurse, non-physician healthcare providers. So to further simplify this, while we are not a market for doctors, nurses, or dentists, we really target the layer underneath the doctors, the nurses, and the pharmacists. So for example, we will target the certified nursing assistant, the phlebotomist, the lactation consultant, the dental hygienist, just to kind of give you an idea of some of the professions that fall underneath the doctors, the nurses, and the pharmacists. To further simplify this, we target the non-diagnostic, non-invasive service providers that are providing services for the body as well as services for the mind. And we'll unpack what that means in the later slides. Next. We have seen a huge opportunity in the allied healthcare world. According to the Health Resources and Service Administration, there are over 5 million allied healthcare professions in the US. This is one of the fastest growing segments in our country. And in fact, the allied healthcare professions compose of 60% of the total healthcare workforce. And 12 of the 20 fastest growing occupations in the US are comes from the healthcare industry. I just want to pause here for a second and share a quick story with you. You know, I recently had a friend who ended up in the ER, and they were sharing with me the hours that they spent in the ER. And when talking to a friend who is a doctor, he was saying that the wait in the ER wasn't because of shortage of the doctors, but it was the allied healthcare professions who are the ones that are pushing the patients from this room to that room, or the technicians, or those that were cleaning the room to discharge one patient and bring in the other patient. So definite shortage of professions in the allied healthcare world. Next slide. There is a shortage of allied healthcare professions, as I just mentioned. And in fact, by the year 2030, they estimate that we will need to train an additional 1 million people. And that's a lot of people we need to train in the next few years. Also, with the gaps in our health insurance or due to high deductibles, people are seeking alternative care. So such services as a massage therapist or wellness counselors are being sought after for care as opposed to going to see your doctor. Instead of seeing a psychiatrist, ABA therapists or wellness counselors, life coaches are being sought after. And also what we have seen is that in the last 3 years, we've experienced and lived through a pandemic that most of us have never experienced in our lifetime. This event has impacted the insurance marketplace condition, some good and some not so good. So there's definitely an opportunity out there with the shortage of professions that are being trained up to the gaps in our health insurance. And so there is a huge marketplace out there. And the other key important component to the growth in this field is that, as the aging population grows and people are living longer due to better medicine and better technology, that is one of the main contributing factors to the demand in those professionals in the allied healthcare world. Next slide. So we've actually seen 5 distinct trends in the allied healthcare professions in the last 5 years. The beauty and the relaxation realm, the mental health, the physical health, the educational and cognitive therapy, and as well as the athletic professions. And again, there are other professions, but these are the 5 main categories where we have seen some trends. Next slide. So we'll dive right in with some of the classes of business within the beauty and the relaxation component. We're seeing everything from an esthetician to aromatherapist, beauty, barber, cosmetologist, day spa, massage therapy, and Reiki practitioner. I think back to in the beginning of the pandemic when we needed a haircut and we couldn't get in to see our hairdresser. Well, what we have seen is that as a result of that, again, we have seen an uptick in those in the cosmetology world come out in the forefront as there's been a greater demand as a result of the pandemic. And now we'll dive into the beauty relaxation world even further. Next slide. What we see in the day spa, some of the commonly covered services are the facials, the haircuts, the styling, the scrubs, the waxing, and it specifically says non-medical. So as far as USLI is concerned, we are not writing the Botox or the fillers or those that are doing services that are rendered by the doctors. We're targeting the non-medical day spa services. One of the trends that we have seen time and time again in 2022 is that massage sessions or the facials are becoming longer than the 50-minute, which was the standard. So when the sessions become longer, that equates to having a need for more staff, which equates to more revenues. We've also seen a trend in such services as microcurrent, microneedling, microblading, cupping, henna services, and it's just a matter of time before the next greatest trend in the day spa comes about. By the year 2025, revenues from the day spa industry is expected to grow just in the US to reach $22.1 billion from an industry that was almost 20 million in year 2020. So that's a lot of growth and a lot of opportunities in the day spa world. Next slide. So now what we are going to talk about is the mental health. One of the things that have come about is that, the stigma that was once associated with seeing a counselor is a thing of the past. One of the other trends that we have seen is that the parents have spent more time with their children during the school hours. So parents have been able to identify some of the needs of their children. And as a result, we have seen a huge uptick in mental health counselors. Everything from an addiction counselor to anger management counselor, art, music, dance therapist, career counselors, educational psychologists, grief, loss, death counselors, horticultural therapists, life coach, meditation guide, mental health therapist, parent coach, pastoral counselor, pet animal therapist, sleep counselors, social workers, sports psychologists, stress counselor, substance abuse counselors, as well as a wellness counselor. So this is just some of the mental health counselors that we have seen as a recent, but again, this list is not all inclusive. Next slide. Here are some staggering statistics, which unfortunately is some of the reasons to the uptick in the mental health counselors. In 2020, 7.74% of the adults in the US reported having a substance abuse disorder. 1 in 5 adults, which equates to about 46 million people ages 18 and older, live with a mental illness, most commonly it being the anxiety. Pandemic brought the need to address mental health to the forefront, especially for the youth. Percentage of people who sought treatment for mental health increased from 57% in 2019 to 66% in 2021, and those numbers continue to rise. Fortunately for us, there are over 1 million social service entities in the US servicing people in need. So the good news is that people are acknowledging that they need help, and there are social services as well as professionals who can help to address the concerns here. Next slide. We've also seen an uptick in life coach, and when we look to define what is a life coach, I call it almost like a midlife crisis, right? People who are looking to improve on personal changes, such as their confidence, their communication skills, dating, career advancements, and goal setting. So it's a consultant for your personal lives. Right? And what we've also seen is that these life coaches are evolving into nutrition, therapy, as well as spiritual guidance. And this industry also is growing by leaps and bounds. It is $2 million industry and growing, and they anticipate this industry to have grown by 5.4% by the year end. And what's more staggering is that it's not just individuals who are seeking out life coaches. Companies, corporations are investing in their people to help them get through, life struggles, helping their people to be in a good headspace. So they say 94% of the companies are investing in employee wellness. Next slide. So now we're going to focus on the physical health, right? So some of those eminent procedures that needed to be seen were put off on the back burner until the pandemic was somewhat under control. So we have seen an uptick in audiologists, a certified nurse assistant, a chaplain, a corrective therapist, a dental assistant, dental hygienist, a dietitian, ergonomic consultant, lactation consultant. And now as kids are going back to camps and school, we're seeing an uptick in lice removal services, occupational therapists. Those are some of the services that people did not seek out during the height of the pandemic, but now they are. We're seeing an optometric assistant, a nutritionist, a physical therapist, a phlebotomist, a recreational therapist, as well as a rehab counselor. Again, this list is not all inclusive, but some are just the classes that we have seen an uptick in recently. Next slide. Nutritionists and dietitians are on the uprise, and we're seeing that the services that were once upon a time individually rendered are being joined together, and one entity or one person is offering multiple services, such as a personal trainer who's also rendering wellness counseling, or a personal trainer who's also doing nutritional counseling. One of the other trends that we are seeing that is going to be big in the upcoming year is the telehealth, to work with clients virtually. whether it's a personal trainer or a nutritionist, a lot of those services are continuing to be offered through telehealth. Job growth is expected to grow from 11% in 2020 to 2030, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Next slide. And this, while we now, yes.
A question. What type of information is needed to get an E&O quote for these classes? For example, what is needed to write at an independent beautician?
Sure. Very good question there. The rating base on the allied healthcare professions, we rate on the number of professionals. So in the case of a day spa or a beautician, if it is an individual, obviously we're quoting it off of one person. If it's a day spa, that is an entity, we will need to know, how many massage therapists do you have? How many hairstylists do you have? And so that is the rating base. And we really ask for a detailed description of the services provided by the applicant. So if it just says I'm a day spa, we need more information than that, because one day spa is not the same from the next. So that is what we look for at a minimum when we look to quote. Continuing on with an educational and a cognitive therapy, as I mentioned, during the time of the pandemic, parents spent more time with their children, as they were able to overlook, how they interacted with, their teacher or their peers virtually. Some became very Zoom fatigued, and therefore the uptick in the educational and cognitive therapy service providers. Everything from an ABA therapist, those who are on the spectrum, to a behavioral therapist, biofeed practitioner, learning disability consultant, neurofeed practitioner, school guidance counselors, school psychologists, and speech therapists are some of the classes that we have seen as a recent time. Next slide. So let's dive a little deeper into what is an ABA therapist, also known as an applied behavior analyst. They are challenges faced by a child to come to the forefront during the remote schooling. Again, such as the autism or being on the spectrum or needing a speech and language pathologist to help them overcome some of their struggles. Many incorporate services of other professions, such as a speech language pathologist and occupational therapist. So they're really working together to help those in need to overcome some of the struggles they're dealing with. And again, this is another statistic that, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we're expected to grow the ABA therapists by 20% by the year 2029. And not to sound like a broken record, but the reason for the uptick in these therapists is because the stigma is no longer associated with seeing a therapist. We often talk about being in a good headspace, being positive, and those are all things that we are doing right as a society to help not only the youth but the adults as well. Next slide. Now we're going to focus and shift gears and talk about the athletic realm. So we have also seen an uptick as a result of being in the pandemic. Some people let themselves go, or maybe they didn't have the platform to, work on their outside. But we have seen CrossFit instructors, to fitness instructor, personal trainers, sports instructor, yoga instructors. These are some of the classes of the athletic trainers that we are seeing. What we at USLI are not targeting are the membership gyms. We're really looking at the boutique, personal trainers, or those that are working with one-on-one, or even in a small group where all workouts are supervised. Next slide. The market size for personal trainers in the US has grown by 4.3% per year on average between 2017 and 2022. Many found success rendering services online or offering it remotely, and that continues to be a trend going into 2023. And then there are some other folks who have gone back into personal training in person, And so we've seen an uptick in that as well. By the year 2026, they forecast that there will be 330 personal training jobs available. And so again, that just kind of shows you the volume of growth that we are anticipating in the next few years. Next slide. Where we have seen the greatest momentum is within the yoga world. Yoga equipment increased by 154% during the pandemic. Yoga instructors ballooned from 9% teaching online to 86% online. Teachers and students alike learned to like online yoga instruction, and over half have favorable reviews. $66.2 billion global market size by the year 2027, just in the yoga realm. And some of the other trends that we have seen yoga could be, the goat yoga, the laughter yoga, aqua yoga, and it's just a matter of time before the next, yoga is developed. Next slide. So now I wanted to talk about some of the rating and some of the coverage enhancements of what we can provide. As I alluded to earlier, the rating base is on the number of professionals rendering the services, and eligibility will be based on the services provided by the applicant. Our minimum premium for the professional liability is $575, and we have the ability to provide the professional liability as well as the general liability on one policy with separate limits. We also have the ability to offer abuse and molestation coverage, and depending on the number of professionals, it's either capped at 300,000 on the professional, or if it's more than a two-person operation, the abuse and molestation is offered under general liability, and we can offer limits as high as $1/3 million. You have the option to purchase professional liability only with us, but we do require they carry general liability, whether it be with us or a competitor. We also have the ability to offer hired and non-owned auto coverage with limits up to $1 million. So the beautiful thing about all this is it's a one-stop shop. Whether you're looking for professional or you need professional GL, some business content with hired or non-owned, we can provide that all for you on one policy with separate limits. Some of the coverage features include personal injury. It is a duty to defend wording. We offer third-party discrimination coverage. We offer punitive damage coverage built into the policy form where it is insurable by law. We have supplemental payment coverage for lost wage to attend to trials and hearings built into the policy form. And we also have coverage for attorney fees, costs, expenses incurred, also built into the policy form. Next slide, please. And so I just wanted to take a few moments here talking about the underlying E&O claim trends that we have seen. So let me just kind of break it down on what is E&O. If you think about errors and omission, it typically covers a lawsuit alleging wrongful act in a course of the professional services. So whether we're talking about a day spa or physical therapist, that is who the professional services providers are, and it's usually for a fee. A third party can bring a suit against the professional for their negligence, for their error or omission, for basically making a mistake in their rendering of professional services. So whether you were negligent or not, or you simply made a mistake, a third party, which is usually the client or the family members, can bring a suit against a professional. And so one of several things that we have seen as of recent, we're seeing nuclear verdicts come in, which is an exceptionally high jury award that surpasses what would have reasonably been in the past. So again, they're paying out higher award than in the past. We've also seen bad faith claim in many states that typically is preceded by a time-limited demand to settle a claim within an available policy limit. Navigating this type of policy limit demand can be difficult, and in recent years, insurance companies have seen a rise in time-limited demand amounting to bad faith setup. We've also seen reptile theory claims, and it's a strategy typically used by the plaintiff bar to influence a jury outcome by focusing on the jury's reaction to instinctively favor safety and survival of their families and community as opposed to the plaintiff's actual injuries. So again, we're tugging at the emotions, and by focusing on that, they're getting higher payout. And finally, inflation, right? What was a $10,000 claim is now a $20,000 claim. So these are some of the reasons that we have seen an uptick in the payout of a claim, whether it was because of negligence or because of assumptions on the part of the plaintiff. And then if you have any other questions, please let me know and I can answer those questions for you.
Great information, Sue. Wonderful job. Thank you so much. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about our broader E&O appetite. USLI does a great job in their wheelbox of all the allied health classes of business that they write, which Sue has done a great job of sharing with you. But we wanted to let you know that there are other services that we can write as well that USLI may not be able to write. And that is like permanent makeup spa services, which includes permanent eyebrow, eyeliner, lips makeup. Other services could be esthetician, microblading, eyelash extensions, cosmetology, and facials that maybe USLI doesn't write. Or write some of the services that they provide. There's also group homes, and they are for developmentally disabled, for substance abuse, or elderly or ill. Long-term care facilities and assisted and intermediate care facilities are also classes that we can write as well. They're rated on the number of beds, generally 20 beds max per location. And in addition, there's a new trend for mobile IV hydration therapy. This one I was not even aware of. So it's becoming popular, and we're getting a lot more submissions coming in. And it's really, an IV therapy is brought to your home or office, provides an IV drip that it can aid with flu or cold, muscle recovery, weight loss, stress relief, and they can include vitamins, minerals, amino acids, medications, etc. So there are some exclusions involving that one. The IV therapy performed by a non-licensed physician assistant, a physician or nurse practitioner, or registered nurse, they must be licensed. So that would be an exclusion if they weren't licensed. In addition, I wanted to let you know that we do have markets for nurses and doctors and dentists as well, if that USLI does not write, but we have other markets that does. So that covers all the classes of business for allied health that we can write. There was one person who asked a question relative to how to get a quote. I just wanted to point out that USLI, we partner with USLI on a phone quote and web quote service. And it's the easiest way you could get an allied health quote. You can get a quick quote even without an application. In the example of the beautician, the information that Sue shared with you that you would need would be, other than the basic information about the client, would be enough to get a quick quote, and a application, pre-filled application would be sent to you with the quote so that you could finish the application with the client, but you would have a bindable quote. And so I really like that option. I like the phone service the best because you're talking to an experienced underwriter, and they can walk you through the risk, and you get your quote in 5 minutes. If you prefer, there's the web quote system, and it works just as good. And they've got a web chat service as well, so you can get questions if you're stuck. You can get questions answered that way as well. So I love the phone and web quotes. This is a great way for you to get a quick quote. Also want to let you guys know that we, on our website, CIDinsurance.com, we have lots of tools for your agency. Of course, you're attending a webinar with us today, but we have lots of recorded webinars and upcoming webinars that you or anyone in your office can watch over and over again and enjoy. You can learn about different coverages for different classes of business, and all professionally done and educational focused. Also, we've got proposal templates, all kinds of templates that are designed to be tools for you to make your own, take possession of, and customize for your agency. We've got marketing flyers as well, and then all of our applications are there as well if you need to find an application. So we look forward to doing some business with you on Allied Health. Start submitting your business to submissions at CIDinsurance.com. And you can copy Lexi when you submit at CIDinsurance.com. And please feel free to take our survey at the end of this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us.